They say God is never late. He arrives exactly when the heart is ready. And when kindness is chosen in silence, heaven takes notice. There are people in this world who move through life unseen, unheard, unnoticed by those they serve. But God, He sees every folded blanket, every whispered prayer, every act of love performed in the dark. This is a story about a woman the world called invisible, but whom heaven never stopped watching. I have a powerful testimony to share with you today, but I need you to promise me something. If you stay until the end of this story, you will see how God works in mysterious ways. Subscribe now so you don't miss any testimony that could be the exact message your heart needs today. And tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? And let me ask you, have you ever felt that God answered a prayer when you least expected it? I want to hear your story. Her name was Eleanor Brooks. She was 52 years old, and she lived in a quiet, affluent neighborhood just outside Boston, Massachusetts. Though lived might not be the right word, she existed there. She worked there. She moved through rooms that didn't belong to her, caring for people who barely knew her name. To the family she served, she was simply Ellie the caregiver. But to God she was seen. She was known. She was loved. Eleanor had kind eyes, the kind that held stories she would never tell. Her hands were strong but gentle, weathered from years of labor and sacrifice. Her voice was soft, almost musical, with a slight rasp that came from too many sleepless nights and too many swallowed tears. She wore simple clothes, cardigans with stretched cuffs, worn jeans, sensible shoes, and she moved through the world with the quiet dignity of someone who had learned to carry suffering without complaint. Every morning before sunrise, Eleanor would wake in the small basement room where she slept. The walls were bare except for a wooden cross and a faded photograph of her two children, faces frozen in time, smiling back at her from a life that felt like another universe. She would kneel beside her bed, fold her hands, and pray, not for miracles, not for wealth, just for strength, just for one more day. Then she would climb the stairs and begin her work, preparing oatmeal for Margaret Carter, organizing medication schedules, folding blankets in rooms that didn't belong to her, wiping counters she would never eat from. She did it all with care, with grace, with a faith that refused to break, even when her body ached, even when her heart felt heavy, even when the silence of that house pressed against her like a weight. Eleanor's faith wasn't loud, it wasn't showy. It was the kind of faith that showed up every single day, steady, unshakable, rooted deep in soil the world couldn't see. She believed that God saw her even when no one else did, and that belief carried her through every dark morning, every lonely night, every moment when she wondered if she mattered at all. Eleanor wasn't always a live-in caregiver in someone else's home. 10 years ago, she had been a certified nursing assistant in Detroit, working double shifts to raise her two children alone. Her husband, James, had died suddenly from a heart attack. One moment he was there laughing at the dinner table, and the next he was gone. The doctors said it was quick, painless. But for Eleanor, the pain never ended. It just changed shape. The medical bills came like waves, drowning everything. Funeral costs, hospital debt. She worked harder, pushed longer, but it wasn't enough. When the factory where she worked closed down, the ground beneath her collapsed. She lost her job, then her apartment. Her daughter, Maya, moved in with friends to finish high school. Her son, Daniel, enlisted in the military, searching for purpose, searching for escape. And Eleanor? She packed what little she had and traveled east, accepting a position she never imagined she'd need. Now she cared for Margaret Carter, an elderly woman with early-stage Alzheimer's who drifted in and out of memory like a ship lost at sea. Margaret was kind on her good days, confused on the others. But Eleanor never grew impatient. She spoke to her softly, reminded her gently, held her hand when the fog grew too thick. She saw dignity in Margaret that others had stopped noticing. She saw humanity where others saw only decline. The rest of the Carter family moved through the house like polished actors in a play. Richard Carter, Margaret's son, was always on his phone. Real estate deals, stock portfolios, networking lunches. His wife, Diane, worried about social events, image, what the neighbors thought. And then there was Lily, their 17-year-old granddaughter who lived with them during the school year. Lily scrolled endlessly on her phone, her face a mask of carefully curated indifference. To everyone else, She seemed fine. Distant, maybe, but fine. Eleanor noticed what no one else did. She noticed the trembling hands when Lily held her coffee cup, the dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, the way she flinched at loud voices, the quiet cries behind closed doors late at night. Eleanor didn't say anything. She didn't push. She just prayed. Every night in that small basement room, she whispered Lily's name to God. But Eleanor carried her own private storm, one she had told no one about. Last winter, she had finally gone to a clinic after months of ignoring a lump she found. The diagnosis came back cold and clinical, malignant. She needed surgery soon, but her health insurance barely covered the basics, and the cost of treatment felt impossible. Time was running out. Still, she told no one. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want pity. So she continued her work, moving softly through the house, praying at night, whispering the same words over and over. God, I don't need answers. Just don't let me walk alone. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening in late September when the storm began, not in the sky but in the house. Eleanor had just finished helping Margaret into bed when she heard raised voices upstairs. At first, she thought it was the television, but then she heard Lily's voice, sharp, panicked, breaking. Then footsteps, heavy, frantic, the sound of something shattering. Eleanor stood at the bottom of the staircase, her heart pounding. The air in the house felt different suddenly, thick, charged, like the moments before lightning strikes. She could hear Diane calling Lily's name, could hear Richard's muffled confusion. Something was very wrong. The kind of wrong that changes everything, the kind of wrong that reveals what's been hidden in the dark. She climbed the stairs quickly, her worn shoes silent on the carpet. The hallway light flickered. Outside, the evening had turned grey and heavy, clouds rolling in low and dark. It wasn't raining yet, but the pressure in the air was unmistakable, the kind of pressure that makes your chest tighten, the kind that warns you, brace yourself. Eleanor reached Lily's bedroom door and saw it, the girl on the floor gasping for air, her chest heaving like she was drowning on dry land. Her eyes were wide, terrified, unseeing. Her phone lay shattered beside her, and on the screen, frozen in the moment before it cracked, were words, cruel words, comments, screenshots. An argument that had been filmed at school, twisted, posted, spread like wildfire across the internet. The storm wasn't outside, it was inside, and it was tearing Lily apart. Richard and Diane stood frozen in the doorway, helpless. They didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say. The house that had always felt so controlled, so perfect, suddenly felt like it was collapsing. The walls seemed to close in. The air grew thin. And in that moment, Eleanor understood. This was the storm she had been praying about. Not wind and rain, not thunder and lightning, but this, a young girl suffocating under the weight of a world that had turned against her. Eleanor took a breath. She didn't ask permission, she didn't wait for instructions, she simply knelt. That night, Eleanor knelt beside her bed, long after the house had gone silent. Her knees pressed into the cold floor, her hands folded tight, and she prayed, not just for Lily, but for all of them, for the broken girl upstairs, for the parents who didn't know how to reach her, for Margaret, lost in the fog of her own mind, and for herself, for the strength to keep showing up, keep loving, keep believing, even when the storm felt endless. God, she whispered, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I trust you're already there. Eleanor didn't knock. She simply entered the room and lowered herself onto the floor beside Lily. The girl didn't look up. She couldn't. Her breathing was ragged, desperate. Panic had taken over completely. Her hands clutched at her chest like she could claw the fear out of her own body. Eleanor had seen this before, not in this house, not in this girl, but she had seen it. She knew what it looked like when the soul screamed louder than the body could bear. Lily's face was pale, her lips trembling. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her hair clung to her neck. She looked so small, so fragile, so utterly lost. This wasn't the polished teenager who moved through the house with practiced indifference. This was a child, terrified, alone, breaking. Eleanor's heart ached, not with pity, with recognition, because she knew what it felt like to drown in silence. For a moment, Eleanor hesitated, not because she didn't know what to do, but because she wondered if it was her place. She was just the caregiver, just the help, just the woman who folded blankets and prepared meals. But then, In the stillness of her own heart, she heard it. A quiet voice, gentle but firm. Go to her. Be my hands. Be my voice. And Eleanor understood. This wasn't about permission. This was about obedience. Richard's voice came from the doorway, tight, with fear. Should we call 911? Should we? Eleanor shook her head softly, never taking her eyes off Lily. She needs to breathe, she said quietly. She needs someone to help her remember how. Diane started to protest, but Eleanor raised a hand, gentle but certain. Trust me, she said, and something in her voice, something steady and unshakable, made them step back. Eleanor reached out slowly, carefully, and took Lily's trembling hands in her own. Her touch was warm, steady, grounding. Lily, she said softly, look at me, sweetheart. I need you to look at me. Lily's eyes darted up, wild and unfocused. Good, Eleanor whispered. Now breathe with me. In through your nose. Slow. That's it. Hold it. Now out through your mouth. Again. You're safe. You're here. You're not alone. Eleanor stayed on that floor for what felt like hours, but was only minutes. She guided Lily's breathing. Slow, steady, patient. She didn't rush. She didn't demand. She just stayed. And slowly, painfully, the panic began to release its grip. Lily's breathing evened out. Her hands stopped shaking. The color returned to her face. And when the tears finally came, real tears, not gasps, Eleanor pulled her close and let her cry. She held Lily the way a mother holds a child. She smoothed her hair. She whispered soft reassurances. It's okay to fall apart sometimes, she said gently. God catches every piece. You don't have to be strong all the time, Lily. You don't have to pretend. And Lily, who had spent years building walls, performing perfection, hiding pain, finally let herself break. She sobbed into Eleanor's shoulder, and Eleanor simply held her. No judgment, no platitudes, just presence. Later, after the tears had slowed, Eleanor helped Lily to her bed. She brought her water. She sat beside her and held her hand. What happened? Eleanor asked softly. Lily's voice was raw. There was a fight at school. Someone recorded it, posted it. It's everywhere. People are saying horrible things. They're saying I'm fake, that I'm a bully, that I'm... Her voice broke. I didn't even do anything wrong, but it doesn't matter. Everyone believes the video. Eleanor listened without interrupting. She knew that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is to simply bear witness to their pain. When Lily finished, Eleanor spoke, not with answers, but with truth. Lily, I don't know what the video shows. I don't know what people are saying. But I know this. Storms don't last forever. They feel endless when you're in them, but they pass. And when they do, you'll still be here. You'll still be standing. Lily looked at her, confused. How do you know? Eleanor smiled gently. Because I've been in storms too, sweetheart. And I learned something. God stays even when everything else falls apart. Even when emotions lie to you and tell you it's over. He's still there. You're not alone in this. You never were. They talked for a while longer. About fear, about faith, about the difference. Between what people say and what God knows, Eleanor didn't preach. She didn't quote scripture. She just shared her own story, her own storms, her own moments of feeling invisible and forgotten. When Eleanor finally stood to leave, Lily grabbed her hand. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't. Eleanor squeezed her hand. You would have found your way through, but I'm glad I could walk beside you for a moment. She paused at the door. Lily, God sees you. Not the version of you that the internet sees. Not the version your family sees, the real you. And he loves every part of that girl, don't forget that, okay? Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. I won't. Eleanor didn't ask for gratitude. She didn't expect anything in return. She simply went back downstairs, finished her work, and before bed, knelt in that small basement room and thanked God for letting her be his hands that night. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter, softer. The storm, emotional, internal, devastating, had passed, leaving behind a strange kind of peace. Eleanor woke early as always, prayed as always, and climbed the stairs to begin her day. But when she reached the kitchen, she found Lily already awake, sitting at the counter, clutching a cup of tea. Their eyes met. Lily's were still red, still swollen, but there was something else there now, something steady. Good morning, Eleanor said gently. Lily nodded. Morning. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lily set down her cup and said quietly, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what you said about God seeing me, about storms passing. Eleanor moved to the stove, began preparing breakfast. And? Lily took a breath. And I think I want to believe that. Eleanor smiled. She didn't say anything more. She didn't need to. She just continued her work, moving softly through the kitchen, humming an old hymn under her breath. And Lily stayed. She didn't scroll on her phone. She didn't retreat to her room. She just sat there in the quiet, in the presence of someone who had shown her what it looked like to be truly seen. From that morning on, something shifted in the house. Lily began seeking Eleanor out, not constantly, not dramatically, but in small sacred moments. She would come down early to help with breakfast. She would sit with Eleanor and Margaret in the afternoons. She would ask questions about faith, about loss, about how to keep going when everything feels impossible. And Eleanor, in her quiet, patient way, answered, not with sermons, not with certainty, but with truth, with stories, with the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and choosing to trust God anyway. Weeks passed. Lily slowly healed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to breathe again, to go back to school, to face the world with a little more courage than before. But while Lily's storm was calming, Eleanor's was intensifying. The pain in her body grew, sharper, more persistent. Some mornings she could barely get out of bed, but she never said a word. She just prayed harder, worked slower, and trusted that God would carry her through. One afternoon in late October, Diane was organizing paperwork for tax season. She needed Eleanor's employment documents, insurance forms, W-2s from the previous year. Eleanor had mentioned they were in a folder in her room. Just grab whatever you need, Eleanor had said, distracted by helping Margaret. So Diane went downstairs to the small basement room, a space she had rarely entered in all the years Eleanor had lived there. The room was simple, almost bare. A narrow bed with a worn quilt, a small nightstand with a lamp and a Bible, the wooden cross on the wall, the photograph of Eleanor's children. Diane felt a strange pang of guilt looking at it. How little they knew about this woman who had lived under their roof for years. She opened the dresser drawer, looking for the folder, and that's when she saw it. A stack of medical papers tucked beneath Eleanor's Bible, as if she had been trying to hide them even from herself. Diane's hands froze as she read the words. Malignant tumor, surgery recommended, financial assistance required, treatment plan, insurance denial. Her breath caught. The dates on the papers went back months, and Eleanor had said nothing. Diane's eyes filled with tears, not of pity but of shame. How had they not noticed? How had they been so blind? She brought the papers upstairs, her hands shaking. Richard was in his office on a conference call. She stood in the doorway silent, holding the documents like evidence of their own failure. When he finally hung up, she didn't speak. She just handed him the papers. He read them once, then again. His face went pale. She never said anything, he whispered. Diane shook her head. No, she didn't. That evening, they sat Eleanor down at the kitchen table. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something. Fragile, like she had been caught carrying a weight she was never meant to carry alone. Why didn't you tell us? Diane asked, her voice breaking. Eleanor looked down at her hands, folded neatly in her lap. Because God has carried me this far, she said quietly. I trusted he would show me the next step when I needed it. Richard cleared his throat, visibly shaken. He had spent years moving through life focused on deals, portfolios, strategies, but sitting across from this woman, this quiet, faithful woman who had cared for his mother with more tenderness than he had, he felt something crack open inside him. Eleanor, he said, his voice thick, we had no idea. We should have asked. We should have noticed. Diane reached across the table and took Eleanor's hand. We're going to cover the surgery, she said firmly. All of it. And your recovery. Whatever you need. You're not going through this alone. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, not of relief, but of gratitude so deep it felt like worship. You don't have to do that, she whispered. Richard shook his head. Yes, we do. You've given us so much. You've cared for my mother with more love than we've shown her ourselves. You've been there for Lily when we didn't even realize she was drowning. His voice broke. "You've been the heart of this house and we've been too blind to see it." For the first time in years, Eleanor let herself be seen, not as the caregiver, not as the help, but as a human being, worthy of care, worthy of compassion, worthy of being fought for. She wept quietly, her shoulders shaking, and Richard and Diane sat with her in that moment, finally understanding the depth of what she had carried alone. But the greater miracle, the real twist, wasn't in their decision to help. It was in what happened next. That night, Lily overheard the conversation from the hallway. She stood outside the kitchen, her back pressed against the wall, listening to Eleanor's quiet tears and her grandparents' promises, and something inside her shifted permanently. She thought about the woman who had knelt beside her on the floor when everyone else stood frozen, the woman who had taught her how to breathe when the world felt like it was ending, the woman who had shown up every single day with faith that refused to break. Lily realized something in that moment. Eleanor had been the answer to her own unspoken prayers, not the loud, dramatic answer she had imagined, but the quiet, steady presence that had held her together when she was falling apart. And now Eleanor needed help. Now Eleanor was the one drowning. And Lily, who had spent her whole life feeling powerless, invisible, insignificant, suddenly realized she could do something about it. The next morning, Lily came downstairs with a notebook full of ideas. She had stayed up all night researching, planning, strategizing. "I want to start a fundraiser," she announced, "for people like Eleanor, caregivers, people who work their whole lives, taking care of others but can't afford to take care of themselves." Richard and Diane looked at each other, surprised. "Lily, that's a big project," Diane said carefully. Lily nodded. "I know, but Eleanor taught me that faith means doing something even when you don't know how it's going to work out. So I'm going to try." What started as a school project quickly became something real. Lily poured herself into it with a passion no one had seen in her before. She organized fundraisers. She interviewed caregivers. She shared their stories on social media, not for clout but for justice. She rallied her school, her church, even her grandparents' wealthy social circle. And the Carters didn't just support her, they funded it. Richard used his business connections to secure grants. Diane leveraged her social network to bring in donors. What started as one girl's awakening became a movement, and at the center of it all was the woman who had knelt beside her and taught her how to breathe. Eleanor's surgery was scheduled for early November. The Carters covered every cost: the procedure, the hospital stay, the medications, the follow-up care. But more than that, they showed up. Richard took time off work to drive her to appointments. Diane sat with her in waiting rooms. And Lily? She visited every single day during Eleanor's recovery, bringing books, soup, stories from the fundraiser. The surgery was successful. The tumor was removed. The margins were clear. Eleanor would need monitoring, rest, time, but she was going to be okay. When the doctor delivered the news, Eleanor closed her eyes and whispered a prayer so quiet no one else could hear it. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." But healing takes time. Eleanor spent weeks recovering in that small basement room, the room that had once felt like a prison, but now felt like a sanctuary. And during that time, something miraculous unfolded above her. Lily's initiative grew. What had started as a small fundraiser for caregivers became a registered non-profit. They partnered with local hospitals, churches, community centers. They created a fund to help low-income caregivers access medical care, legal support, financial relief. By Christmas, they had helped 12 women. By spring, it was 40. And every single one of them heard the same story. The story of Eleanor Brooks, a woman who had cared for others her entire life and had taught a lost girl how to breathe in the dark. Eleanor's name became synonymous with quiet strength, unshakable faith, and the kind of love that asks for nothing in return. Eleanor didn't return to full-time caregiving after her recovery. The Carters wouldn't let her. Instead, they offered her something different, a role as a mentor and advocate for the initiative Lily had started. She would speak at small gatherings, church basements, community centers, support groups, helping women navigate healthcare systems, emotional burnout, and fear. She would share her story. She would listen to theirs. She would remind them that they were seen, valued, loved. Eleanor never spoke on stages. She never sought applause. She just told the truth. And people listened, because they saw in her what the world had overlooked: strength wrapped in humility, Faith forged in fire, hope that refused to die. The initiative continued to grow. By the second year, they had expanded to 3 neighboring states. They had helped over 200 caregivers access medical care they couldn't afford. They had provided legal aid to immigrants facing exploitation. They had created support groups for single mothers, widows, women carrying impossible burdens alone. And Eleanor was at the heart of it all, not as a figurehead, but as a presence, a voice, a reminder that no one is invisible to God. Lily flourished. She applied to college with a new sense of purpose, determined to study social work and advocacy. She wrote her application essay about Eleanor, about the woman who had taught her that faith isn't about never falling apart, but about trusting that God will hold you together when you do. She was accepted to every school she applied to. She chose the one closest to home so she could continue working with the initiative. The Carter house transformed. It was no longer just a place where Margaret was cared for. It became a refuge. Eleanor started hosting small gatherings there, support groups for caregivers, prayer circles for women facing medical crises, quiet dinners where people could share their stories without judgment. Richard and Diane didn't just allow it, they participated. They cooked, they listened, they prayed. They learned what it meant to truly see people. Margaret, even in her fog, seemed to understand something was different. She would smile more, reach for Eleanor's hand, say, "You're a good girl, Ellie, a very good girl." And Eleanor would smile back, tears in her eyes, knowing that even in the midst of memory loss, love remains. The legacy Eleanor built wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it didn't make headlines or win awards, but it changed lives, one woman at a time, one prayer at a time, one act of quiet, faithful service at a time. And then came the news Eleanor had been praying for, but never dared to expect. Her son, Daniel, was coming home. His deployment was over. He was safe. He was whole. And her daughter, Maya, she had finished her nursing degree, inspired by the resilience she had watched her mother carry for so many years without complaint. Eleanor sat in her small room the night before Daniel's return, staring at the photograph on the wall, the one with her children's smiling faces. She traced their features with her fingertips and wept, not from sorrow, from gratitude, from awe at a God who sees, who listens, who never abandons. That night, Eleanor knelt beside her bed one more time. But this time, she didn't ask for strength. She didn't ask for provision. She didn't ask for anything at all. She simply cried and whispered, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," because she had learned, slowly, painfully, beautifully, that God had never stopped watching. He had seen every sleepless night, every folded blanket, every whispered prayer. He had turned her silent suffering into quiet purpose, and he had used her brokenness to help rescue others. Eleanor Brooks wasn't invisible. She never had been. She was seen, she was known, she was loved, and her story continues in every life she touched, every heart she softened, every soul she reminded that no one, absolutely no one, walks alone. If you made it this far, it was not by chance. God placed this story in front of you because you needed to hear it. Now I want you to do something for me. Subscribe to the channel so you can keep receiving these stories that feed the soul. And in the comments, tell me which country you are from and share this with me. What did this testimony leave in your heart? Is there something in your life you need to surrender to? God today? Share your prayer, your pain, or your joy. Here we are a family and your story matters.